Hi, I'm Jacques Taylor. I grew up in the Oak Cliff section of Dallas cheering for Tom Landry's Cowboys. And for the last 30 years, I've covered your Dallas Cowboys as a beat writer, columnist, TV insider, and radio personality. I've made a name for myself by creating relationships with players who either didn't like the media or didn't trust the media. Welcome to JacquesTalk One On One. I'm going to have conversations with your favorite Cowboys from every era, from players who had great careers to those that had great moments. We'll discuss their lives and their careers and the moments that shaped them. And we'll deliver it like we always do, straight, no chasing. Welcome to JacquesTalk One On One. Let's get it. Welcome to JacquesTalk One On One. Here with my guy, Darren Woodson, Ring of Honor. Should be Hall of Famer, but we're going to get into that in a minute. But we're going to talk about Woody's career and some things about him that maybe you don't know. I see he looking at me crazy.
I am looking at you crazy.
But
yes.
we're gonna start hard. We're gonna start strong because this is real talk now. Your name came up in a conversation I had a couple days ago, and I was explaining something to somebody about the way people are with money. And I'm gonna preface this with this. I said I was talking to Darren Woodson one day, and he told me people who make it to the league, whatever league it is, they're usually one of two ways if they grew up without money. They're either fairly frugal because they don't ever want to be poor again, or they go buy 12 cars and 10 mansions.
Absolutely.
Because they never had it.
There's two extremes. There's no, the gray areas are far in between.
So see, you come up in daily conversations.
Yeah, that's good.
See, that's because you're my guy. But here's a question I have for you. How would you describe, okay, let me preface this again, because I know what he's going to say if I don't preface it. Your mom's a phenomenal woman.
Yes.
All you have to do is look at the man she produced, she raised.
That's right.
Look at his success after football and know that his mom was a phenomenal woman. But that's not the question. The question is, how did your dad shape you? See that? Describe your dad as a man.
The father as a man. That's crazy to me. You asked a question because the questions are usually about my mother because my mother raised me.
Why do y'all think I'm different?
Yes, so you frame that differently. So my father did not live with us. I knew my father, didn't see him a lot. And we're still going through things.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, we're still going through things. So
what do you mean?
Well, look, I think it's, as great as my mom was, and my mom raised 4 kids, so I was the youngest of the 4. And we were inner city kids, didn't own anything. I don't think I owned a house until I bought her first house. So we were always renting. And she worked 2 jobs. I saw her just go, and didn't have the father in-house, right? Now, my father's a good man. He just wasn't a part of the family. And at a young age, I just could never tell. I mean, I couldn't understand why. I didn't know those. And until I got of age and I figured out, okay, well, these two just weren't compatible or whatnot. But at the same time, you always ask yourself, okay, well, they weren't compatible. Well, why wasn't he in my life? Why didn't he show up for me on a day-to-day basis? And at the same time, there were so many things. Like I can tell you right now, Jacques, I could be places, even though my father wasn't around, I could be places in a mall, and if my father was close by and I could hear his voice, I knew his voice automatically. Like it could be 1 million people, his voice, and he was always someone I always wanted to be close to. Like I was after that man's heart, right? My entire life, I just wanted to be by my father, and it never turned out that way. I mean, were we cordial? Yes. Was it life lessons that came with things? No, there wasn't a whole lot of the man that really shaped me. Loved him, but he didn't shape me that way. And I'll tell you that, and I'll say it this way: it's not till you become a father that you realize that how the hell were you not around? What was going through your mind that made you not come around and spend time with me and my brother and, everyone else. Like, what was it? Because I couldn't fathom being away from my kids. That's not even a question. I can't fathom the part of me not being there, waking up with my son, or being around them and bringing true value to my seeds. I can't understand it. So that's one of the reasons. Like, I probably sound like there's animosity. There's really no animosity, and there's still a forgiving process that's going on. But it is what it is. It's a great question, because it's something that in my heart, and you can probably hear it in my voice, is that it just burns deep down in me.
Now check this out. I would challenge you and say he did shape you. Because of all the things you just said.
Yeah, that's true.
Now let me tell you how I know he shaped it. See, Woody's my guy. And when I tell you this, he's gonna be like, boy, you don't forget nothing. So check this out. Woody told me years ago, I asked him to do something, and he said, hey, love to, but I can't promise my son I'll be there. When I tell my kids I'm gonna do something, I do it no matter what, because my dad used to promise me stuff all the time and never did it. And I would say, so he did shape you. All the ways you are as a father now is because you wanted to be that dad that you didn't have growing up.
Yeah, that's true. He did shape me in that aspect. And even so, so I went through that in my young ages. As I've aged, my father has been more around more. And I think it's because the guilt that he's had and the maturation process that he's had to go through as well. But he's more of a father now, and he's more of a grandfather than he was. But at that point, it was tough when you're a baby and you need guidance. That guidance wasn't there.
Now, and I don't know the answer to this. Did he come around once you became Darren Woodson?
No. I don't think that had anything. I think he was always sporadic in my life, here and there, and that hadn't changed. Even when I made it into the college and became an NFL football player, it was. He wasn't a guy that came and asked for money or nothing like it. It was just, the same type of relationship. Didn't really gain until the last 10 or 12 years.
Okay, let's go deep on this, because I like these topics. And I like these topics because why? Black men and their fathers always have had issues, or there's always been things going on for whatever reason. Now, what kind of relationship did he have with his dad?
He didn't have a relationship with his father. I don't think my father knew his father. My grandmother raised him. He was a single child and raised him. And that's the truest statement is that he didn't know any better. And the world has always revolved pretty much around him, and he had to be independent and all that. And that's, that could have been a part of it.
Well, see, y'all can go down that road next time you see him, next time you have a minute. Just chatting about this, that, or the other thing. Yeah,
well, I mean, look, we've had, through the years, we've had multiple conversations. Not all of them have been polite. Some of them have been very rewarding for me over time. And I think I would say the same for him. And look, there's been a lot of forgiving. And it wasn't up until like the last 15 years that I just went through that process of forgiving. Because if I carried that burden, it wouldn't have been good for self, and it definitely wouldn't have been good for him or my family as well. So I've asked for forgiveness, and we've moved on. And I'm always making those, I don't need to make an introduction to my kids. Like he's gotten to know the kids.
That's great.
Yeah.
As we move on to football, what did the stigma of Prop 48 do to you?
Man, that was game changing for me as far as enlightening me to be the person that I am today. And it was because all my life I played all sports, football being the one that I really stood out in. And I never missed a season of football since I was 7 years old. It was 7 years old all the way up. And it was when I was labeled a Prop 48, meaning my first year, my grades were so bad in college. So bad in high school that when I couldn't enter college at Arizona State or any college unless I sat out that first year, got my grades up, and then they qualified me, gave me the scholarship, and moved on, right? So my first year of ineligibility and not being able to play was was life-changing in the sense that I was embarrassed because I knew I was a smarter kid than that.
Right.
I had so many people that were walking up saying things like, he's just a dumb athlete. And, so the image of who I knew I was taking a hit. I was missing the game, which was a part of my identity back then, was being a football player. I wasn't in the I couldn't be around the locker room. I couldn't be around the program at Arizona State. Couldn't be around the coaches. It was specific to getting my grades up and being a student for a year, and then the next year coming in and playing if I got my grades up, right?
Right. So
I hit the ground at Arizona State and just went at it academically. Like it was a new me. And it gave me a different perspective on life as well, because all I knew was football.
Right.
I was an inner city kid. All I knew was sports. And I never knew what else was out there outside of sports. And it gave me that year, it gave me some time to think, man, there's a lot of other things that are going on in this world.
Right.
Like criminal justice and, real estate and business. And I think that was a time where I really spawned who I am as a person today, because I knew that there were more opportunities than just sports that were out there.
Now, why were your grades so bad?
Because I didn't focus, man. I was never focused. I was always in the moment of being wrapped up in the identity of being a football player or being an athlete. And school just wasn't important. And here's the thing. My mom worked 2 jobs. She was gone all the time. I was the youngest of 4. My older brothers and sisters, they were out of the house. It was just me. I was that latchkey kid where I came home every day,
right,
and I did what I wanted to do. And no fault to my mother's, but she couldn't, she could get on me and jump me about my grades, and then the next day there was no one there
to reinforce
it as far as after school. I mean, an after school program or whatnot. So I went on about my business as I normally did, and just didn't get the job done. And it is no one else's fault but mine, because I had all the resources in the world. I can't tell you how many coaches, how many teachers, how many friends wanted to help, and I just didn't listen.
When did the NFL become real? Now, I ask these people all the time, because they say, I dream of playing the Okay, everybody dreams of playing the NFL. At some point, it becomes like, no, this thing is real.
Yeah,
when did it become real for you?
My sophomore year. So I remember watching. So we played a game on Saturday. The next day after us, the Arizona Cardinals were playing. I think they were the Phoenix Cardinals at that time. The Phoenix Cardinals were playing at Sun Devil Stadium the next day. And I was at the facility, and our facility overlooked the field, right? So we could see the game going on. And I remember getting out of watching film, and Lovie Smith was my position coach. And he was at the window, and he was looking down, watching the game. And I walked up, and I was standing next to him. And the Cardinals were playing the Chicago Bears. And Mark Carrier was the safety with the Chicago Bears. Mark Carrier, USC, who we had played against a couple years before, or Lovie Smith had played against a couple years before. And I remember Mark Carrier playing, and I walked up, and Mark Carrier's back was to us.
Right.
And I talked to Coach Smith. I said, man, he's a player. And he turned around and looked at me, and he says, Carrier? And he says, yeah. He said, yeah, he's a really good football player, but he can't hold your jock strap. You're a way better player than he is. And I looked at him. I said, then Carrier? He's like, not even close. And I said, huh. And then I remember I walked off, and a couple of buddies came up, and then I was leaving. He grabbed me by my shirt, and he said, you hear what I said? And I said, yeah, I heard what you said. He says, dude, you're going to play in that league for a long time. You just keep doing what you're doing.
So he saw something in you. You didn't even have, you had no glimpse of it.
I knew, I felt like I didn't understand the big picture. I understood where I was. Look, I was just coming off Prop 48, and I was a sophomore. I was basically my first year of really actively playing. And I felt good about where I was on the team in my position, but I didn't know outside of I was dreaming, but I wasn't dreaming that big to get to as far as the NFL. And he just really always poured confidence in me. He knew who I was and knew my capabilities.
So what was draft day like for you?
Draft day was fun. So the year before, my roommate and best friends, a guy named Floyd Fields, he played. He was a safety at Arizona State. He got drafted the year before me.
Did he come to Dallas for a minute?
He came to Dallas for a hot minute.
Okay.
But Floyd, we sat there. He's getting drafted that year. I'm going to enter the draft the next year. Had one more season left. And Floyd's family was in Chicago. I was sitting with him, and we watched the draft. And he was supposed to go into second round, mid-second round, early third. And I watched him slide. It was just he and I. And the first day of the draft wasn't like it is today. It was the first however many rounds, 6 rounds. And then they did, I think it was the next 6 the next day or whatnot. But I watched him slide and just watch players get drafted. And I was like, holy cow, that dude go. And he's just, he just went through it, man. And I sat there and watched this dude go through it as well. And I felt so bad about the fact that it was his dream to play in the NFL. And we just watched it slip. And he gets drafted. And I think it was like late 4th round, 5th round to the San Diego Chargers at the time.
Right.
And he turned to me and he said, next year, he says, you are not going to sit here and watch this draft. He got drafted.
Right.
And I'm congratulating him. We sat down. He said, you're not doing this next year. You're going to go somewhere. And you're not going to be sitting here just stuck to this TV. Right? We ain't doing this. And he said, but we ain't doing this again. Right? So next year came up. He was playing at San Diego. He came back for the draft. He gave me his pager. I didn't have no money. He had his first year in the NFL. He had a pager. Back then we had pagers. We didn't have mobile phones, right? He gave me his pager and he says, hey, set up a golf tee time, did all these things for me. I left with a couple other buddies. He said, I'm going to man the phone along with my mom and my family that was there at my apartment. And he said, but I do not want you around here. So I left. I went to go hang out, and then I was going into pulling up to the golf course to go play golf for the first time in my life with a couple buddies. And the pager went off. And when the pager went off, it had Floyd's, it had my home number on it.
Right.
I walked in the clubhouse, long story, because it was a little hairy when I walked in there because they didn't want to give me the phone until my 6'6" buddy who was with me said, give him the damn phone, right? So they gave me the phone, I called, and he said, hey, man, I got some good news and I got bad news. And I was like, okay, the draft just started, so it's good news, whatever it is. He's like, yeah. He said, you just went 2nd round, 37th pick. And I said, hell yeah. And I'm like, yeah. I said, who drafted me? He said, that's the bad news. Them damn Dallas Cowboys drafted me. And he knew I hated the Cowboys. I hated the Cowboys as a kid. I was a Steelers fan as a kid. Whoever played the Cowboys, I wanted them to win. I mean, I could not say, all my best friends were all Cowboy fans. And that's all I ever heard about. So being in Phoenix, that was like the Cowboys' second home.
This is true.
Yeah, so I just, I heard it, and I thought, well, hey, at this point, it don't matter. I just want to go. So he said, hey, you got 45 minutes. Your plane leaves in 45 minutes.
Wow.
Get back. So I got back, saw the family real quick, shook hands, kissed everybody. He had already packed a bag for me.
Floyd is the man.
Floyd's my dude, man. I was gone, came right back the next day. I went to a press conference in Dallas, and then the next day I flew back home.
You tell all them folks you was a Steelers fan?
No. Something crazy happens when a man signs this check, and it has his name on it, right? And there's a star on it.
Right.
All my Steelers allegiance was gone, dude. Gone, out the door. I didn't even know. I was like, Steelers who?
Wow. Like all this time I had no idea you was a Steelers fan.
Yeah, I love the Steelers, man. Just Cowboys just weren't. They didn't do it for me back then.
I feel you on that. What do you remember about your first start?
First start was way too long. Because I thought I should have been a starter my rookie year, honestly. I mean, but Jimmy had other plans, and Dave Campo had other plans as well. They wanted me to cover. They wanted me to be their nickel guy, which, probably made me to the player that eventually I ended up being. But, of course, you just, it's an ego thing. And I'll call it an ego, a pride thing, whatever. You want to be introduced. as a starting whatever it is. And it was the first time in my life that I didn't start. Like that didn't sit well with me. But because I sat that first year, I learned a lot about the game, learned a lot about the position, because I was what they called a tweener. So I never played the safety position. I was always playing like an outside linebacker, rover back. But it gave me time to sit, learn, digest what I needed to do to be a better safety and understand, the scheme and all that. But my first game was, I was the starter going into my first year, or going into my second year.
Right.
And I had broken my arm. I broke my arm in training camp, and I had missed time, and I was just coming back. So I wasn't supposed to start that first game. I didn't start the first game, but then we had an injury, and I had to come in and play. I think James Washington, they dressed me up.
Right.
I was supposed to be just sitting there most of the game. They didn't even have me on the special teams. I was just had this big old cast on. And then James Washington went down. I think it was James went down, and then they inserted me in the game, and I balled out, man. bad arm and all. I balled out, and which was supposed to be 3 games with a broken arm and not play, was first game getting on out there and playing that game, and with this big old cast arm. But it was, man, the game was fast, much faster in that situation, being at the safety position, because I was just scatterbrained. I had to make the checks and do all these other things. But then the games after that, man, it just came so natural. It just felt so good to be that guy, man. And I, to this day, like I could tell you, my 13 years in the NFL, man, I love game day. It was everything to me. I could not wait to get to Sunday. And it took too long to get there sometimes, but that was...
What'd you love about game day?
It was the nerves, same way as in business today. It's the nerves. Like you're trying to find, it's the competitive edge. It's the man, like, what is it that, what's my challenge for the day? My challenge is normally a matchup. And it was either a matchup in the slot, or it was a matchup at the tight end position. If we played a really good tight end, then I had the tight end. If we played a 50-50 tight end that didn't get a lot of balls, I was covering the slot, hands down. Like that was my job. And I really gravitated to the competition side of things, because I always wanted to challenge myself to see who I was at the same time.
Right. What's the exhilaration feel like when you win the Super Bowl? And how different was it from 1 to 2? Because you was playing in 2. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 1 and 2 were similar. The last one probably was a little different. But, I liken it to, look, the greatest day of my life has always been the birth of my children. Hands down. That's just, they fall just like that. It's just, my children are everything to me. And then it's that feeling of winning the Super Bowl with the men that are in that room. And it's because of the fact of, if you really look at the off season and what takes place, the off season starts in March, and everyone shows up. You're running, you're working out, you're getting to know each other. You got new people coming in. You got some of your core guys, but the goal starts then in March, and you go from March to April, May, June, July, and then July is training camp. And, you go from 80-some players down to 53 in a matter of a couple of months. And to go through the ups and downs of a season, the injuries and the wins and the losses, the hard losses, and, hard to walk on Monday mornings. Man, people don't realize, like, sitting in ice tubs just to walk on Tuesday and Wednesday, right? But you put all that time in, and then, I can remember walking down my second Super Bowl, walking down that tunnel and having that in my mind, like, man, this is like all the things that we went through this off season and this year, like those are the emotions when you're walking down that tunnel, man. And it's like you're playing all these things in your mind, like, man, this has been trying. And then you look at the dudes that are next to you, and they've gone through the exact same thing that you've gone through. They've worked their ass off took time away from their family. You know, we studied. I remember playing our first Super Bowl in Los Angeles, and Ken Norton Jr., who was the leader of that defense, had us every day, like hours on hours after practice, watching film. Like we were the smartest team.
So he
and the most prepared team.
Yo, fellas, we got film at whatever time.
No, we had practice. We watched practice with the coaches. Then ordering pizza in, and we're watching film 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, just over and over and over again, because like he got it. Like that's the flavor of having like great veterans, man. That just not only are they great football players, but they want to win. Like, the Tony Toberts, who people don't give credit to, that showed me how to be a pro, right? Just,
what you mean he showed you how to be a pro?
I mean, just show up every day. Tony Tobert didn't miss a practice in 9 years. Like 9 years, dude. You don't think I'm sitting there watching that? And when he spoke, which he was quiet, but when he spoke, people perked up, and thought, okay, well, he's got something to say. But he just taught me the little things. I tell you another one. Daryl Johnston was every day, dude. Like people had no idea that those two were like true leaders within that locker room, because you always hear the big names,
right?
But the guys that were really made an impact on my life and me as a pro were those guys where I saw that were doing the exact same thing as me, getting up early, working out, going to special teams meetings, and then lasting an entire day and bringing so much value to all three phases of the game. And I just, that's how I came up.
Okay, let's keep it real. Cowboys in the 90s, y'all are rock stars.
Yeah.
I mean this, I don't want to paint you out to be a saint, because I know you. But
Definitely won that.
How do you avoid the scandal that consumes so many cats off that team? With Michael Irvin, the playmaker, being a ringleader.
Right.
But lots of guys got tapped here, tapped there, involved.
Yeah.
So I think it says something that you avoided the scandal. It's like, I was on driving out here, I was like, I really don't remember him being involved in
No, man. But hey, look.
Again, not no saint, but we just keep it real.
It's called not getting caught. And my teammates would say the same thing. You're saying, how is it that you were at the same? And I was like, yeah, but somehow I escaped.
Right.
I left early or whatnot. But look, I was no different than most of the guys in those 90s. And I'll tell you, I definitely wasn't a saint. So we had a good time. I don't know what you're talking about, but we had a good time. We did. Like, here's the thing about Jimmy's team back then. Drafted guys who loved the game. I mean, absolute alpha dogs who just loved. Like, we were gym rats. Jacques, I remember being at the facility at Valley Ranch until 9 o'clock, and the trainers telling us to go home. Jimmy Johnson we would play ping pong, racquetball after practice, watch film, do all these things, and then go play racquetball or ping pong and be there all day long. And they would have to run us out of the building. I remember being out late nights, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Instead of going home, I just go to the facility and sleep in my locker. And there were 8 or 9 of us doing this, right?
You were not alone.
We weren't alone. They were not alone, and I was not alone, right? But we were those type of people. So it amazed me how Jimmy did such a great job of putting his thumb on us and knowing the pulse of that team, knowing that, yeah, we're going to go have a good time, but at the same time, when it gets Thursday, Friday, boy, we're buttoned up. We're buttoned up and ready to go. But I don't know. Look, man, those are my boys and still my boys to this day. We're still running together.
What's your favorite memory as a player?
That's an easy one. Won the championship in 1992 at the Rose Bowl. Beat the Buffalo Bills. After the game, I was in the locker room and we're celebrating. And it's back that time you had champagne and beer and all that stuff, and we're spraying it all over each other and having a good time. And Bill Bates, who was a veteran of 10 years or so before I got there, he had been in the league so long, and his locker was right next to mine. And I remember him and Mark Tuinei on the ground, and they're crying, and they're hugged up. And I was like, man, what are these dudes doing? Dude, we just beat the pants off this team. Like,
Right.
but they're hugged up, and they're crying, and on the ground, and Big Buck, that was the equipment manager.
Yeah.
He'd been there since Tom Landry days, man, in the 60s. Buck had been there forever. And Buck was standing next to me, and I'm like trying to spray stuff on him. He goes, hey, you know what? You know why they're on the ground? You know why they're so emotional? And this is all kind of noise. I'm like, what, Buck? And he said, you know why they're emotional? He said, let them cry. Let them cry. And I was like, why? And he said, because those dudes went through Coach Landry, who drafted them. One of them was, both of them were free agents. Coach Landry brought them in. Coach Landry got fired, who they felt was a hero. He gets fired. Jimmy comes in, and they bought into the system. He says, this same two dudes went 1-15 just about 3 or 4 years ago. Same dudes. And I was like, man, that was a moment, dude. To me, that was a moment because, first of all, I didn't know. I was a rookie. I was 22 years old. I had no idea how hard it was to get there. Zero. Like, these dudes have been in the league 12 years, and they finally get there, go through all this, and they finally get there. And I just remember, man, Bill stood up, and he came up and he hugged me, and he's like, man, we're coming back. We're coming back next year, and this and that. And I thought, man, that's cool. That's my favorite memory. That's why it's my favorite ring.
What's your favorite Troy story?
8 Ball, man, dude. Dude, I get, you talk about a dude that's just so special. Like, I get emotional about this one because he was the epitome of who we were as a team. Like, he worked more than anyone. Like, you talk about bringing your lunch pail to work. I absolutely admired who he was as a person in that locker room because he was tough. And sometimes you didn't like it because he would say things and he, start periods all over again because he didn't like the way he was like a perfectionist and all that. But I learned so much, man, just about my own self from watching Troy. And that's really inspired me not only as a father, but it's inspired me as a leader here in my own business, right? It's just the fact of the resilience of getting knocked down. Like, 1 year he got sacked 9 times before I got here. He got sacked 9 times. He figured out a way to get his ass up. There are times where I saw Troy have back spasms before a game and find a way to show up and play those games, man.
Tennessee.
Yeah. And show up. Just be available. And the dude was available, man. And that coupled with the fact that he was the best, the most accurate passer of the ball that I've ever seen. I played against them all. Matt Marino, Elway, I saw them all. There ain't nobody throwing that out route like that dude. Not like that.
Nah, you right on it.
On the money. Like, it's going to be right where it wants to be. But he practiced the same way, man. And, the tempo at practice was a tempo in the game. And I just thought, we owed him more, man. I think the Jones family owed him more by the fact of Jimmy Johnson and the Jones family. Because I think with Jimmy, you might be talking about, Troy, and who I always feel like was the greatest quarterback, but he could have easily won 5. He could have won 5, man. And I think that really, his legacy is written. He's a Hall of Famer and all that, but I think the organization cheated him out of a couple of rings.
So when you heard him booed against San Francisco that day, you must have been like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, y'all out your mind. Yeah, you're out your mind. I can't tell you how special this dude was, man. And the thing is that he never asked for it. You never saw him championing himself. Like, that wasn't his deal. His deal was show up, get the work done. And I think if we had the structure around him, Jimmy would have provided that structure. I think we would have had we could have won more games, and I think he would have led us through that.
Give me an example of him. You talk about nobody worked harder than him, or
show up, dude. He was a lunch pail dude, like blue collar. You think he's a superstar, but he was a blue collar dude. He show up early in the morning, man. And I used to watch him he would beat 90% of us, 98% of us to the office. I'd see him in the morning. He'd go get his whirlpool or whatnot, and then he would have his book. And I can still remember he'd have his book, and he would go and go sit down with Norv Turner and those guys just to start the day off, like with the coaches, and have the quarterback meetings and all the game plan implementation. So a lot of that started early in the morning for him,
right?
And he was the last one to leave. I'm taking off. His car's still there.
What's your best Irvin story?
Dude, so many. I mean,
The ones you can tell.
the ones I could tell. I got one where we had lost a game. I think it was to the Redskins, and everybody was down and out. Even he was too. I mean, we were all on the plane, and it was just quiet on the plane. Like we lost the game back then, dude. It was like a death in the family. It was just because you worked so hard during the week. And I remember coming in back on a Monday. I got two stories for him. We came back. It was a Sunday game. No, I take that back. I think it was a Monday night game. And we came back, and for some reason we had to watch film and go to practice and run the next day. Mm-hmm. And we got home, and everyone was down, and we were just on the line about to run and get loose on Tuesday just to get our bodies back. That's what we did every game. After every game, we come in the next day, watch film, and then so it was a Sunday night game, and it was Monday. It was when we were doing this. And I remember him standing there, like when everybody was down and out, it's quiet. He's like, "What we quiet about? Why was everybody all quiet? Like this is the end. Like, pick your shit up and let's go." And I remember him, huddling us up before we ran. Like, man, that's over with. On to the next. We're gonna show up tomorrow, and we're gonna get her, blah blah blah. And I was just like, man, dude. He was right though, man. Like, you got to get over that.
Right.
You got to move on and be resilient, and that's the resilient side. That's one of the things. And then I'll go back even further. My rookie year, I show up, and it's in July, and I'm at Valley Ranch. And if you're in Valley Ranch, if you're in the training room where the equipment, the trainers are and rehab and all, you can look out these windows and you can see the practice field. And it's July, 4 or 5 days before training camp. And we had a workout early in the morning, and it was over with. And I remember going through all my workout, and I left. Mike was at that workout. I left, and I came back because I had to get a treatment. I had an ankle or something. I had to come back that afternoon or something. Right. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, middle of July. It was hot, but it was burning hot. And I remember looking out that window, and he's running routes by himself, no quarterback. 5 route, 4 route, slant, comes back, runs a go. No ball.
No ball.
No ball. Just running routes. Route after route after route after route. And I'm standing there watching him through the glass, watching him do all these things. He throws up, washes his mouth out, back on the line. Freaking horse. Like, just going and going. And then Jim Maurer standing there, he was like, dude, that's every day. I didn't know he was doing 2-a-days. I thought he worked out with us and we all went home. No, he came back. And that was impressive, man. That was a rookie. That was my rookie year. So I was like, these are the dudes, right? This is why he's so good. Yeah. That's why he's special.
Why did you take Deion's locker?
Why did I take Deion's locker?
Yeah.
I never took Deion's locker.
Maybe that was Roy Williams who took Deion's locker.
It must have been Roy. Yeah, it wasn't me. I used to have Deion and I used to share a locker in between
Maybe that's
hours.
Why I thought it was.
Yeah. It was a share locker. Then when he left, and then I kept the locker altogether. Yeah.
Now I understand.
Yeah. Did he tell you something differently?
No,
locker?
he did not say that. But that leads to the question of, what happened to Roy Williams?
Roy, dude, man, love Roy. I don't know what happened. I mean, people say what happened to him. I don't know what happened to him. He played, 10 years in the league, in the NFL?
Yeah, but we know while you were there, he was a superstar, and then after you left, he became a good player.
No, look, I think Roy was a superstar. Look, man.
No, he was definitely a superstar.
Oh, dude, I've never seen anyone hit.
Says one of the best hitters ever.
Dude, I've never seen anyone hit people the way Roy Williams hit.
So you remember that Marshall Faulk hit?
Oh, Marshall Faulk. He hit Amani Toomer on a sideline, and I was standing there when he hit him, and it felt like someone took a bat and hit someone over the head with hit him on the head with his helmet. Like he hit him so hard, the Giants sideline wanted to fight. And this was a legal hit. This wasn't illegal. He was inbounds. He caught the ball and he got hit so hard. It was so offensive to their sideline that they wanted to fight about it. But he was and these hits didn't just happen like in tight spaces. He hit people in wide open spaces. He was one of the great tacklers of his time, man. I always knew that I was a really good. I can get you on the ground.
Right.
I'm just gonna get you on the ground at times. I can hit you in tight spots, and I'll give you a shot in tight spots, right? He could hit you in tight spots, and he could also hit you in the open field, and that was impressive. Was really impressive. And he came in the league, man, and it was just Mike Zimmer could draw it up, and whoo, dude, if he had a free run at you,
it's a wrap.
It was like just ask Emmett. Like he had a free run at you, it was night. You're going to sleep, right? But I think things kind of changed when I retired. The task was that he had to take on more of the burden, not only on the leadership side, but also in coverage as well. And that probably played a lot more role. And to be honest and fair, the teams weren't that strong, man. Defensively, we weren't. It wasn't like he had a lot of talent around him at the same time. And I think he suffered from some of that as well. But man, one of my dear friends, brother, like he was my baby too. When he came in, dude, I thought we were just really, really good together.
What did Bill Parcells mean to you?
Coach was, man, I just talked to him the other day. I learned so much. If I can tell you, I'm having this gold jacket if you coach me early on.
Why do you say that?
Because he taught me so much about the game, like how to study. Like I've had coaches teach me. Mike Zimmer taught me how and Dave Campbell taught me how the safety position and the entire structure of the defense and where our strengths and weaknesses are, and I totally understood that part of it. Like they taught me defense. Bill Parcells taught me the game, the entirety of it, how offenses approach it, why the quarterbacks look a certain, how they're looking at you, how they're going to attack you, situational football, where I really never got that grasp of it, but you understand why Bill Belichick was so good over all those years, just situation managing the clock, and he taught us how to manage the clock and how we're going to execute 2-minute drill, offense and defense, and special teams. Like there was so many nuances that he continued to teach us that were just things that I wish I would have had early on, because I think the game would have really slowed down for me in situations. And even on the coverage side, like here's the deal. For all those years, and I'll blame Mike Zimmer for this, but I covered all those years. I mean, slot receiver, tight end, and I really never got a chance to look at the quarterback. It was always, I'm looking at the guy I'm covering, and every once in a while I can peek back and, and do some things. But at the end of my career, he before I got hurt, he said, "Hey, look, I want you to start playing safety." And he was going to take me out of the roles of covering slot receivers and tight ends and let me play a little bit more safety. And that was, and he kind of was molding me into that at the end of my last year. And I loved it, man. I love being able to see the quarterback and trying to go get it,
When did you hurt your back?
Going into my 13th year of my career. So training camp. We were a week before training camp, and that was in '04. A week before training camp, and I remember we were doing sprints, and that's when my back went out. I had hurt it, tweaked it a month or two before, but thought that I was healing up fine.
You heard it lifting?
I was doing snatch cleans and leg presses. And
Bill Parcells special snatches and
cleans,
explosive movement.
Yeah. So, and I was tired. I just got back from NFL Europe. So it was kind of a catch-22. I shouldn't have been working out when I did. And tweaked it then, and then it got progressively worse over time. And then I was training to get to training camp and blew out.
What did that feel like?
The pain?
I mean, is it like a nagging thing, or it's like, oh no?
Oh no, I was done. No, I knew I was done. I didn't know my career was over with, but the pain was so bad. It was the worst pain. I had 10 surgeries throughout my career, that being my 10th one. The pain was so immense that they had to wheel me in backwards to the hospital, to the doctor's office. Wow. I got surgery the very next day. But they wheeled me in backwards because I couldn't sit. I could not sit down. And that was a tough time. But I had so many surgeries in the past, and I always recovered really quick. Right. After this surgery, because I had so much nerve damage, running down my right leg, I had drop foot. I couldn't, I was limping because I had no strength in my right leg. And the nerve took 5 months to start to regenerate. So I missed the entire season, and it was hard, man, because I had guys like Britt Brown, who was just a guy who worked so hard to help me get back on that field, man. Try to get back on that field, and there's nothing you can do. Structurally, I was fine, just the nerve wouldn't fire. Right. And I knew then it was time.
And then this is where I enter this story. It's one of my favorite stories of all time, although at the time it was as stressful as it could be. So I find out Woody's retiring, or he can't play, he's retiring. I call him. He says, yeah, I'm done. I say, I got to write this. I need you to wait a day. So I need to tell everybody. I'm like, Woody, don't make me wait, dog. Don't make me. He said, Jacques, I need a day. Give me a day. I'll call you at 12 o'clock tomorrow. Or 11 o'clock, whatever it was. It was at the hour. He said, I'll call you tomorrow. Trust me, I got you. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. Somebody's going to breathe. Yeah. And so I waited. Next morning, 6 a.m., 5 o'clock, I sprint out the front door. Why? Hop in my car, go to 7-Eleven. Wasn't no internet back then. I got to make sure Fort Worth Star Telegram has not got no Darren Woodson story. They didn't have it. I said, okay, I'm good. And I need part 2. Please call me, dog. Don't leave me hanging. Call. 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, phone ring. Jacques, what's up? I got you. What you need? And I'm going to tell you what I tell young reporters. When I got off the phone, there was nothing for y'all to follow up on. I had everything. But that trusted my faith in you. Yeah. Why'd you need that day?
There were so many people I needed to talk to, because I couldn't just let it be, they just found out a certain way, and it was more in-house. It was more, I had some in-house cleaning. Family, had to talk to my mother, my brother and sisters. Had to talk to Mike Zimmer, who I owed it to them, and to let him know where I was. Right. And then Coach Parcells. I mean, preliminary talks with Coach Parcells, but not the talk. The talk. He was always trying to talk me. He knew it was coming down my mind was going down that path, and he was trying to talk me out of it. Just, hey, you know how Parcells, just take the year off. Enjoy it. The nerve's gonna, you know how he is. The nerve's gonna heal. You'll be fine. It'll regenerate. You'll be fine. I've gone through this before with former players and blah, blah. And dude, I was tired, man. I really was, but I owed you that because you and I had known each other and gone back and forth for so many years. And I told you, my word is bond. Once I told you, and I wanted you to write the story too. I didn't want to just give it to anybody. So, but it was, man. It was the end, and I was scared, man. I didn't know what to do.
That was my next question. What was that year like? That first few months after you retired, you try to figure out what to do with your life.
Yeah, thank God I had really good mentors. George Bass, my agent, being one who was in the real estate game, because I kind of knew I was going down that path anyway, into that world of real estate. But even then, I still didn't know where I fit in there. I didn't have any real history outside of investing into real estate. I just didn't know what the future held, and I was getting calls. And here's how you know that people really care about you. Once I told Parcells that I was done, and he kept on saying no, and I said, yeah, I'm okay. Well, this is what I want you to do. You're gonna go do TV because everybody's calling me about TV, right? You doing TV. They're all calling me. He goes, I'll set it up. So he's the one who set it up with ESPN, Fox, everybody, CBS. Hey, you want to interview him? You interview him now. But he really knew the inside workings over at ESPN. And the ESPN guys called me up, and I went and did the interview. And Parcells' deal with me was, you go do this for a little bit, and then I'm going to call you back, and you're going to play.
He ain't giving up.
He didn't either. He didn't. He called me throughout my first year. And at the end of the year, he wanted me to come back and play. And I said, nah, I'm done here. But I didn't know, man. I really didn't know what the future held for me. So I ended up working with ESPN for a number of years. And then while I was at ESPN is when I had the time to really figure out what I wanted to do. And this is why we're in this office now.
Yes, it is. How do you feel about the Hall of Fame?
I'm not discouraged. I feel like, I wish I was in. I feel like I'm deserving, and I've said this to you before. Like, you asked me, you know what, man, it's your fault. This is all your fault anyway. But you said something. We were in Wichita Falls years ago. And I remember coming off the field, and it was in '99. That's a 2000, right? Something like that. And you walked up to me, and you said, hey, what's your feeling about not making the all-decade team? And I looked at you and I was like, wow, man, I didn't know. To what I had no idea what the voter was like, what the all-decade team meant or nothing. And I was like, man, whatever. Like, who cares? And you said, nah, dude, you should have some beef about it. You should be on this all-decade team. And I was like, whatever, Jacques, going out to practice. I had my helmet on. And you made a big deal out of it. Like, you made a real big deal out of it. And I didn't think anything about it. And then, as time went on, I started thinking about that later on as I knew the importance of what the all-decade team was. Then I thought, damn, how did I make the all-decade team? How did I not make it? And what went into that? So now fast forwarded to the Hall of Fame. Yeah, it burns my ass that I felt like I did so much. I mean, I transitioned to an entire position at the nickel safety, cover safety, which I was, did for all my career. I played all the positions. I'm second leading tackle on special teams, played all special teams my entire career. And you get to this point, you've had so much success, and you don't get rewarded for it. But there are a lot of people that haven't gotten rewarded for that part of it as well. It's just, fundamentally, I feel like I'm deserving for what I've done and the body of work that I put together.
Well, you don't need me to carry you to say anything about you other than, and I told somebody this the other day, I said, people just don't, if people really conceptualize the fact that at 6'2", 228, you was covering Jerry Rice in the slot and hanging with him, in addition to all the other stuff, all-time leading tackle, all that other stuff, that's Super Bowl, that's fantastic. But you throw in, he covered Jerry Rice in the slot, and that's why the Cowboys could beat the 49ers to get to the Super Bowl. That to me is enough, because ain't nobody, it's one thing to be Kevin Smith on the outside. At least I can put my hands on you, I can bump. in the slot, Jerry Rice getting a free run.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone to me is Hall of Fame worthy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I appreciate it, man.
as we wrap this up, I'm always curious about this. What's the biggest failure you've had that's had the biggest impact on you? Does that make sense to you?
Biggest failure that I've had that's had the biggest. We talked about one.
The Prop 48?
The Prop 48 was.
That could be it.
Yeah, that was one. Well, I mean, look, we're open, right? We're wide open here, and I appreciate you asking me the questions. I say, besides the Prop 48, but at a young age, really opened my mind to other things other options that were out there. I would say I had 3 kids and I went through a divorce, and that was painful, man. That was failure at its highest degree, and it wasn't. I would never blame her. I would point the finger at self, just because I don't know if I was 100%. Like, I don't know. I know I didn't give it what it's just due, and work at it and do all the little things. So I don't recommend that to anyone to go through.
What did you learn from that to make yourself a better man?
Just, not only, it's one thing to be available to your teammates and, whatever your passions are, but man, you need to be available. I needed to be available to her, and I wasn't like, throughout her needs, I wasn't available. And my kids, much as I talk about my kids, how much I love my kids, they're watching, man. They watch me through that process, and I was not a leader. I did not lead, and that is true failure. So I'm not doing that again. I'm not going through the fact that I'm going to drop the ball and not show up and not be available as not only a father but a husband. I'm going to be there, man.
What does available mean?
Man, available means, man, you show up regardless. Like, that's your partner, and regardless of what they're going through, you ride or die. You're there. You show your ass up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what. I have these conversations, Jacques, not only with my kids, but with, I'm a partner in a commercial real estate firm. If people come here every day that ask me to mentor them, and I do. I mentor a lot of people, and then we have 80-some brokers here in this office that I have to talk to, and as a managing principal and owner of the business, I got to have strong conversations, and that conversation usually ends with, you need to be available, you need to show up. Like, good things happen to you when you show up. Mm-hmm. When you don't show up, you're 50-50, and people can't trust you, and you're inconsistent. And when when you need something, and you think you need something, then people are going to judge you off of your actions. And if you're there, if you show up every single day, I'm telling you, the good will come your way.
That's why he's my guy. That's Darren Woodson. Hey, we appreciate you, man.
No, man, appreciate you, Jacques.
It's a pleasure.
Brother. Yep, always.
Thank you. Till we talk again, you guys be blessed.